And away we go, episode 1168 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Thursday, October 2nd, 2025. It is the day after the start of a new era for the Washington Nationals. They, in a post on X at 6 a.m. on Wednesday, officially announced the hiring of Boston Red Sox Senior Vice President, Assistant General Manager Paul Toboni as Nats President of Baseball Operations. Yes, 6 a.m. on Wednesday. Well, some of you were sleeping. Well, some of you were up, say, walking your dogs. Well, some of you were working out and getting huge. Well, some of you were returning home off engaging in deviant acts. The Nats, in a post on X at 6 a.m. on Wednesday, officially announced the hiring of Paul Toboni as Nats President of Baseball Operations. So we at 9 a.m. on Wednesday had his introductory press conference, and there was a lot to this presser, including not one, not two, but three members of Nats ownership being at the dais for the presser. Now, my hope was that this was done in order for ownership to declare a new era in terms of spending on infrastructure and players. We did not get any such declaration from the Lerner ownership group. We did, though, get this declaration from Paul Toboni. He is impressive. Take a listen.
I'm stepping into this role with a clear vision, and that vision is to be the highest performing organization in all of sports. I want to help build something that becomes the envy of all of sports, right? Where we get, X amount of months and years down the line, and people are looking at this organization like, shoot, I want to be part of that organization.
Paul Toboni, quote, "I'm stepping into this role with a clear vision, and that vision is to be the highest performing organization in all of sports," end quote. Quite the statement, but you know what? Good for him for saying that. In-depth reaction to and analysis of what was said by Paul Toboni and Nats managing principal owner Mark Lerner at this Paul Toboni intro presser coming up later in the show. Hello and welcome to this Thursday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. The Washington Commanders QB1, Jayden Daniels, he on Wednesday afternoon was a full participant in practice for the first time since suffering a left knee injury that has caused him to miss the team's last two games. Will he play in the team's game at the Los Angeles Chargers this Sunday afternoon at 4:25? Well, we think so, we hope so, but we do not know so. Next segment, discussion of and reaction to the latest on Jayden Daniels off comments from Daniels and head coach Dan Quinn. I'll also examine other injury news with the Commanders offense, including the team opening the 21-day practice window for right guard Samuel Cosmi. The following segment, discussion of and reaction to the latest with the Commanders defense, including the team placing yet another key defensive player on the reserve/injured list. Dan Quinn expressing confidence in the defense getting better, and Quinn assessing what is going on with cornerback Marshon Lattimore. Much more on him in moments. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me, the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Email from John Granlund on the Commander secondary writes, John, "Hey Al, do you know how the secondary is grading out? Lots of hate for Lattimore, but is he playing as bad as the fan base thinks?" Thank you for the email, John. Marshon Lattimore is not doing well. He and Mikey Sainristil are the two cornerbacks who really are struggling for the team. And we on Wednesday's show, episode 1167, talked about this with Commanders analyst Mark Bullock of Bullock's Film Room on Substack. Here were two other good friends of this podcast, Dalton Wasserman and Trevor Sikkema of Pro Football Focus, on the PFF NFL podcast in an installment that came out this past Monday.
The cornerbacks, for me, that's my most disappointing part of this game, is the idea was, all right, healthy Marshon Lattimore. Trey Amos comes in. We got a steal in the second round. Sainristil's back in the slot. That's his natural position, right? None of it's working out there at corner right now. And Lattimore especially, what we've seen so far, and I know he's a veteran. They traded for him. They gave a third-round pick for him. We're getting to a point where I'm not sure he's playable. You might have to take him off. You might have to take him off the field.
That's how it feels at this point.
Because Sainristil and Amos, they're young guys. You got to leave them out there, and they're going to play hard. And Amos has right around a 60 coverage grade. It needs to be better, but he's a rookie. Lattimore, to me, I'm not sure how much longer you can keep running him out there. We've just seen him get shredded repeatedly this year. And, I mean, Drake London went crazy in this game. I have Drake London down as my most impressive. He went crazy in this game. He had a 91 receiving grade, 8 catches for 110 and a touchdown. The Commanders, it's so hard to win shootouts every week. and they're going to be in shootouts. It's honestly not that different from the Cowboys. They're going to be in shootouts every single week. Now, the Commanders' run defense is better than the Cowboys. They have Bobby Wagner and those guys right up front, so it's a better chance of not just losing complete control of the game on the ground. But this is also why when we talk about Washington's run game being so important to their success, not just the balance in their offense, but keeping this darn secondary off the field is a big-time asset for them. So they got to be better somehow. This is a problem that lingered over from last year, and I thought this cornerback group, this scenarios where this could have been better, through 4 weeks, it's definitely not.
How about that from Dalton Wasserman and Trevor Sikkema that Marshon Lattimore may not be playable at this point? But it's not just him. Mikey Sainristil for this regular season has an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of just 49.6. That's really bad. PFF grades are on a scale of 0 to 100. 60 is average. The Commanders for this regular season as a team have the worst pass coverage grade per PFF in the NFL, 32.5. That is atrocious. Email from Ivan Lambert of USA Today Commanders Wire on the Commanders going for 2 in the loss at the Falcons, writes Ivan. Hey, Al, when the Commanders scored a touchdown to reduce their deficit to 9 points, the team went for 2, hoping to reduce the margin to 7 points. The Commanders were successful as Mariota found Ertz to make the score 31-24. However, the choice actually put the team at much more risk. Matt Gay has not missed a PAT this season, so even though there were great odds that Gay could reduce the margin to 8, the team chose to attempt a play that succeeds only 50% of the time to make the game a 7-point game. Had the pass attempt failed, the Commanders would have been down 9 points. Thus, the entire team would have known, now we have to score twice. If we had simply kicked the extra point, we still would have had a chance to win this game. Why would the coaches even consider such a choice when the risk far outweighed the reward? Thank you for the email, Ivan. Good topic. According to ESPN Analytics, whether the Commanders should have gone for 2 in that spot was about a 50-50 call. In other words, no clear-cut, slam dunk, absolutely clear answer. 4th and 3 for the Commanders at the Falcons 24. Quarterback Marcus Mariota had a 24-yard shotgun touchdown bomb to receiver Deebo Samuel Sr. down the left sideline with 8:48 left in the fourth quarter to cut the Commanders' deficit to 31-22. And Mariota then had a 2-point conversion pass to tight end Zach Ertz on a play on which Mariota drew in the defense with a read option play action out of the shotgun, and the 2-point conversion cut the Commanders' deficit to 31-24. So what was the Commanders' coaching staff thinking? Well, the Commanders went down 9 immediately after the touchdown. In theory, we're going to have to convert on a 2-point conversion try at some point, either right then and there to cut the deficit to 7 or after a future touchdown to tie the game. So if the Commanders after that touchdown felt good about going for 2, felt good about a play for going for 2, then going for 2 there was fine. And of course, the decision worked out. The biggest argument against going for 2 in that spot would be that there still was 8:48 left in the fourth quarter. So a lot of time, a lot could have changed in terms of the score. But, of course, the Commanders' defense could not stop the Falcons' offense in this game. So none of this ended up mattering. The Falcons' offensive drive that followed that Commanders' touchdown drive was a 14-play, 69-yard drive that consumed 6:51 off the clock and resulted in kicker John Parker Romo's 26-yard field goal to give the Falcons a 34-24 lead with 1:57 left in the fourth quarter. Hey, if you are a Commanders fan and you are on Instagram, make sure that you're following WSH on the Daily. The handle is at WSH on the Daily. WSH on the Daily provides outstanding daily Commanders coverage. The page is updated every day, always has a great fresh look. WSH on the Daily just started in 2021 and yet has nearly 44,000 followers. You learn a lot by following WSH on the Daily. You are entertained quite a bit by following WSH on the Daily. If you're on Instagram, check out WSH on the Daily. The handle is at WSH on the Daily. And check out WSH on the Daily's online shop, WSHonthedaily.com. Some terrific gear, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats, excellent materials, modern looks. So for smart, informative, fun, and engaging Commanders content, check out WSH on the Daily on Instagram. And for great merch, visit WSHonthedaily.com. Hey, please consider subscribing to the podcast if you're not already doing that. Subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you're already subscribing, thank you. The Commanders' QB2 Marcus Mariota overall has played well in place of Jayden Daniels during his 2-game absence caused by a left knee injury that he suffered in the Commanders' 27-18 loss at the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football on September 11th. But Daniels, of course, is the QB1. He last season had an all-time great rookie season. The sooner that he's back, the better. And it is looking like there's a very good chance that he will be back for the team's game at the Los Angeles Chargers this Sunday afternoon at 4:25. Daniels on Wednesday afternoon was a full participant in practice for the first time since suffering that left knee injury. It was so good to see that. Here was head coach Dan Quinn during the opening statement of his pre-practice press conference on Wednesday afternoon.
Also said I'd give you an update on Jayden. He has been medically cleared by the doctors. He'll practice full today.
All right, that was a quick soundbite, but I wanted to play that because Dan Quinn said that Jayden Daniels, quote, has been medically cleared by the doctors, end quote. Great to hear that. Jayden Daniels being a full participant in Wednesday afternoon's practice, of course, does not guarantee that he'll play at the Chargers this Sunday, but he certainly is on a good path. We on Wednesday afternoon had this back and forth between David Aldridge of The Athletic and Dan Quinn.
Dan, what will the next 48 hours be like in terms of what you're looking for from Jayden before you make a decision?
Just real back into the fold of it, David. He'll get all the reps at the practice, so we'll be back at a full speed, the execution, the timing, all of that. That's really what I'm looking for, but he's definitely chomping at the bit to get going. So, or just running the offense, being back to himself. That was our discussion today to make sure, man, like all the looks, all the calls, and the speed of the practice.
I know you understand his competitive nature, and I'm sure he understands your authority, but I wonder what those conversations are like when he's telling you I can go, and you're telling him I hear you, but not yet.
Yeah. It's good that I've known him for a year and a half now. I think when you're first getting to know somebody, you're feeling that out, but knowing what his best looks like, and also having trust in one another to do that. And so I think that's a big piece of it.
Yeah, that absolutely is. This should go without saying, but I'll say it anyway. Jayden Daniels should not decide when he plays in a game again. The front office and coaching staff should decide when he plays in a game again. That's how that works. But you love that Daniels is so anxious to be back. We, on Wednesday afternoon, had this exchange between Commanders insider Nikki Javala of The Athletic and Dan Quinn.
What have you seen with Jayden over the last week or so, really, as he's dealt with this?
Just a steadfast approach to it, Nikki, first off, to put the work in to say, okay, I got to do all the things to do to get better. And then once you kind of get over the top of that, then to throw in the movements to go. So that's what we saw in terms of the work to get better.
So Jayden Daniels did a post-practice press conference on Wednesday afternoon, and he seemed to be more upbeat than he was during his post-practice press conference the previous Wednesday afternoon, perhaps because he is anticipating playing this Sunday, although it's not like Daniels on this most recent Wednesday afternoon gave a bunch of expansive answers. He usually does not do that. We on Wednesday afternoon had these exchanges between Commanders insiders Tashawn Reed and Tom Shad of the Washington Post and Daniels.
Jayden, I know you said you never really went through something like the last couple of weeks, not being able to play. What has the last couple of weeks been like for you overall, and what do you think you've learned from this process?
Been tough. Obviously, as a competitor, you want to go out there and help your team in any way possible. So kind of being sidelined for this past couple of weeks, we're super tough. But DQ and my team, I was there for me because they knew how much it meant to me. And I try to return that same energy, and I think I was able to do that.
Where did you watch the game on Sunday, and what were your thoughts?
It was a tough one. Wish we could have pulled out the win. Was cheering from those guys from my couch, the comfort of my own home.
And then, do you expect to play Sunday?
I guess we'll have to see it Sunday.
Yes, sir. We will have to see on Sunday. Jayden Daniels, during Wednesday afternoon's practice, was wearing a left knee brace. We on Wednesday afternoon had this back and forth between 7 News DC sports director Scott Abraham and Daniels.
Jayden, I saw you wearing a brace during practice today. Is that the plan of, if you do play on Sunday, to wear that brace?
I guess we got to see on Sunday.
Okay, let me ask you this. With the brace, any limitations? What is that like? Obviously, I've never worn a brace before, so as an athlete, what is that?
Me either.
do you like it? Hate it?
Yes. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but if that's what I have to wear, then, I'll do anything possible. But we'll see on Sunday.
Well, of course, Jayden Daniels doesn't want to be wearing a knee brace. Who would? Would the brace lessen his scrambling? Daniels for this regular season has a scramble percentage per Sumer Sports of 10.23. He, for last regular season, had a scramble percentage per Sumer Sports of 12.02, number 1 among all qualified quarterbacks in the NFL. Whatever Jayden Daniels plays in a game again, and it is looking like that next time will be this Sunday, will he be more careful with how he plays? And this is such a tricky deal, right? He has elite mobility. You don't want him shutting that down. At the same time, you want him to lessen the contact that he's taking. Who on Wednesday afternoon had this exchange with Dan Quinn.
Dan, when you have a guy like Jayden Daniels coming off an injury, obviously he wants to play out of the pocket. Obviously you want to use as many of his abilities as you can. Is there a way to balance that with protecting him and keeping him healthy, or is that something you can't be concerned about?
Yeah, I think you can. Not necessarily the calling of the game, but maybe I had said it a few weeks ago, the only thing worse than missing games is, not taking the lessons from there. And as a scramble goes, when do I get down? When do I get out of bounds? And so, Jayden's still growing too. We feel like he's been playing for a while. And so as he's into his second year, there's still things that he's growing on too. And that's kind of the fun and exciting part, that he hasn't anywhere near the top of what he's going to be. And so that lights me up. But those are some things, where do you grow? When do you take your shot? When do you not? And so those are the lessons you want somebody to learn at quarterback or at any spot. And I certainly fully expect him to do that. That's the type of competitor he is.
That was a great point by Dan Quinn about Jayden Daniels. Quote, Jayden's still growing too, end quote. That is true. We should remember that. He in his NFL career has played in / started a total of 19 regular season games and 3 postseason games. He is far from a finished product. We on Wednesday afternoon had this exchange with Jayden Daniels.
Jayden, knowing your importance to the team, if you're able to play on Sunday, will you have to be a little extra cautious to make sure you keep your health up, or can you even play cautious and still be effective and be your usual self?
I just think it's that balance. You find that balance. Obviously, you want to be able to be available for the rest of the games, but you got to be smart, and that's kind of what we talked about. Just living to see another down, but just know if the game is on the line, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. So that's a different circumstance too.
All right, and there's also this. This game at the Chargers is in the L.A. area, SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. As the great Dr. Dre said many years ago, Inglewood, always up to no good. Daniels is from the L.A. area. He's from what is called the Inland Empire. We on Wednesday afternoon had this back and forth between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Jayden Daniels, and then you'll hear a back and forth between Nikki Javala and Daniels.
You are an LA guy. What would it mean?
I'm from the Inland Empire.
Okay, there you go. But what would it mean for you to go back out there and play a game out there Sunday?
It would mean the world. I plan on having a lot of people attend the game. So that is the hometown, and be able to play back in my hometown as a pro, it would mean everything.
And then as far as your movement and all that, Dan said he wants to see how you move and all that. When did you feel like you were back to yourself, moving the way you want to move?
If you let me talk, I would have wanted to play 2 weeks ago, but I guess in their eyes, probably this past weekend, is when I started to feel like myself.
How was it today? What were you? I know you practiced in full, but do you feel like you can do all the things that you normally would on the field?
Like I said, I felt like I could do that 2 weeks ago. So, but I don't make those calls.
2 weeks ago, you felt you could do it 2 weeks ago?
I mean, if you put your mind to it, a lot of things you could do anything. So, but no, I felt good out there. And yeah, that's the plan.
All right, we like that plan. As for other Commanders offensive players on the team's injury report for Wednesday afternoon's practice, boy, are the Commanders thin at receiver. Receiver Terry McLaurin did not practice due to the quadriceps injury that caused him to miss the 34-27 loss at the Atlanta Falcons this past Sunday afternoon. Receiver Deebo Samuel Sr. did not practice due to a heel ailment, and receiver Noah Brown did not practice. He has missed the last 2 games due to groin and knee injuries. So each of the team's top 3 receivers did not practice on Wednesday afternoon. Some good news, tight end John Bates was a full participant in practice, this off having missed the last 2 games due to groin and calf injuries. And right guard Samuel Cosmi was a full participant in practice as the Commanders on Wednesday at noon announced that they had opened the 21-day practice window for Cosmi. Very good news. Cosmi has been on the reserve/physically unable to perform list since August 26th, this due to a torn right ACL that he suffered in the 45-31 win at the Detroit Lions this past January 18th in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. He is eligible to come off the list this week. We'll see if he comes off the list this week and plays at the Chargers this Sunday, but an encouraging sign that the team has opened that 21-day practice window. Here was Dan Quinn during the opening statement of his pre-practice press conference on Wednesday afternoon.
We'll begin today with some good news. Sam Cosmi will begin his 21-day window. He got injured in January, and he has worked his ass off to get back on the field with his teammates, so it'll be great to have him back at practice.
All right. Remember, the Commanders this regular season have had multiple starting right guards in place as Sam Cosmi, Nick Allegretti for the first 2 games, Andrew Wiley for the last 2 games. The team this regular season also has had multiple starting left guards, Brandon Coleman for the first 2 games, Chris Paul for the last 2 games. We on Wednesday afternoon had this exchange between Commanders insider Liam Griffin of the Washington Times and Dan Quinn.
With working Cosmi back into the lineup, you guys have had a lot of change on the offensive line. How difficult is that for maybe your signal callers to adapt to all those changes up front?
Yeah, it is part of it, and it's not what you want. Like you'd love for all the guys to play in their spots, but that's just not how it is. I think when we look around the NFL right now, there's a lot of moving parts, on all the teams, ours included. And Sam getting back into it is a step in that direction. But he also has to get back into rhythm and, the combinations and all the communication. So we're just pumped that he's put this kind of work in to allow him to, be ready to get back with the group this quickly.
Yeah, hope we see Sam Cosmi play this Sunday. Additionally, left tackle Laramie Tunsil and tight end Zach Ertz did not practice on Wednesday afternoon, but due to rest. And the Commanders on Wednesday afternoon officially announced having signed receiver Robbie Chosen to the practice squad. Catering by Uptown. It provides catering to perfection. Whatever event you're planning, especially a wedding, visit cateringbyuptown.com. Mention that Al Galdi sent you and see what Catering by Uptown can do for you. If you are planning a wedding and you are searching for answers, searching for direction, searching for guidance, visit cateringbyuptown.com. Mention that Al Galdi sent you. See what Catering by Uptown can do for you. Catering by Uptown provides both great service and a great price. Catering by Uptown is a family business. It is run by the Pereiras, so they are great Commanders fans, loyal supporters of this podcast. Catering by Uptown specializes in handling everything so that you don't have to. Catering by Uptown understands that special events deserve to be celebrated in style and thus takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event. Great service, amazing cuisine, and reliability are the foundation of what makes Catering by Uptown one of the most referred caterers throughout Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia. And know this, if you go to cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you can set up your own personal tour of one of Catering by Uptown's premier venues, including outstanding waterfront venues. Catering by Uptown offers the ability to coordinate services at over 100 of the best reception halls, vineyards, farms, historic homes, event venues, banquet facilities, and wedding venues in the area. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. More now on the Commanders, off them on Wednesday afternoon, practicing in preparation for their game at the Los Angeles Chargers this Sunday afternoon at 4:25. Let's talk Commanders defense. The team's injury report for Wednesday afternoon's practice included the following regarding defensive players. Edge defender Dorrance Armstrong did not practice due to illness. Cornerback Mikey Sainristil did not practice due to a knee issue. Linebacker Ale Cajo did not practice due to a concussion. Safety Percy Butler was a limited participant in practice. He did not play in the 34-27 loss at the Atlanta Falcons this past Sunday afternoon due to a hip injury. Edge defender Von Miller did not practice due to rest, and linebacker and special teams ace Nick Bellore did not practice due to rest. For the Chargers, their offensive line is banged up big time. Left tackle Joe Alt did not practice on Wednesday afternoon, and per head coach Jim Harbaugh is doubtful to play this Sunday. Alt suffered an ankle injury in the Chargers' 21-18 loss at the New York Giants this past Sunday afternoon. Keep in mind that the Chargers' true number one left tackle Rashawn Slater, he suffered a season-ending torn patellar tendon this past August during a training camp practice. Also, right guard Mekhi Becton was a limited participant in practice on Wednesday afternoon. He missed the loss at the Giants due to a concussion. Speaking of serious injury, the Commanders on Wednesday afternoon announced having placed edge defender Javonte Jean-Baptiste on the reserve/injured list. This due to a torn pectoral muscle that he suffered in the loss at the Falcons this past Sunday afternoon. The Commanders on Wednesday afternoon also announced having signed cornerback Antonio Hamilton Sr. from the practice squad to the 53-man active roster. So the Commanders now have 5 key players on the reserve/injured list, and 4 of the 5 players are defensive players. Edge defenders Dietrich Wise Jr. and Javonte Jean-Baptiste, safety Will Harris, cornerback Jonathan Jones, and running back Austin Eckler. Big-time pressure on the Commanders' defense to be better in this game at the Chargers than the defense has been in 2 of the last 3 games, the loss at the Falcons and the 27-18 loss at the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football on September 11th. During head coach Dan Quinn's pre-practice press conference on Wednesday afternoon, had this exchange between Commanders insider Tashawn Reed of the Washington Post and Quinn.
Dan, I know it's been a bumpy start for the season for the defense overall, but what gives you confidence that the unit will be able to turn it around moving forward for the rest of the year?
A lot of confidence. I thought, there's a lot of progress that I thought, with the exception of the second half on third down. That's a big piece of how you want to play. And I thought, in 2 games, the energy and intensity has been what I'd hoped it would be in pass rush, and 2 others, not so much. And so that gives me a good sense of what I know it can look like. Had we not seen that, I might feel differently. So I've got plenty of confidence in how we want to play and what it will look like. And so I'm very much looking forward to seeing that.
Dan Quinn saying that he has, quote, a lot of confidence, end quote, in the defense being better. We have seen the defense play well. The 21-6 win over the New York Giants at Northwest Stadium on September 7th. The defense was very good. The 41-24 win over the Las Vegas Raiders at Northwest Stadium on September 21st. The defense was mostly good. But the Commanders' defense, especially the pass defense, has some really ugly stats. Check out these passing stats for teams against the Commanders in this regular season. 7 touchdown passes versus 1 interception, a yards per pass attempt of 8.08, a yards per completion of 13.25. We on Wednesday afternoon had this exchange between 7 News DC sports director Scott Abraham and Dan Quinn.
Dan, in terms of the secondary and those back end guys, how do you improve communication? Like, how as a defensive minded coach and your staff, how can you help improve communication with the secondary guys?
Well, I think first it starts in meeting rooms to make sure when you make a call, like you're just echoing it, it's the collaboration, that you're working on together. You take that into the walkthrough portions and then onto the field. So you just emphasize it in every way. It's not going back to walk, crawl, run, but it's just the emphasis of it over and over. Say it again. If you don't hear it, repeat it back. Communication is also sent and acknowledged. So if I give you a call, you're giving me a signal back. Some's verbal, some's nonverbal. So like most things, you get what you emphasize, and we're certainly going to dig in hard on that.
So that exchange right there was about the Commanders secondary as a whole, but ain't nobody in the Commanders secondary taking more criticism right now than cornerback Marshon Lattimore is taking. We got into this during the opening segment of the show, and look, he is far from the only Commanders defensive back who's struggling. Cornerback Mikey Sainristil is struggling. Safety Quan Martin is struggling, but Lattimore may well be struggling the most. Marshon Lattimore in the loss at the Falcons, per the NFL's Next Gen Stats, was targeted a team-high 7 times, giving up 5 receptions for 82 yards and a touchdown. He, in this regular season, per the NFL's Next Gen Stats, has allowed 11 receptions for 170 yards and a touchdown on 19 targets. Teams are not at all afraid to throw at pass catchers being covered by Lattimore. In fact, it sure seems like teams are targeting Lattimore, who is supposed to be the Commanders' CB1, right? We on Wednesday afternoon had this back and forth between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Dan Quinn.
With Marshon, do you feel teams are going after him? And I guess that would be part one. And then two, how do you feel he has been performing?
Yeah, so part one, when you play middle field coverage, like both corners, get targeted to where you go. Sometimes it's their matchup, sometimes it's ours. I don't feel that's been the case. And then the second part, can you repeat?
How would you assess
Yeah, so I'd say when you play corner and you play offensive tackle, like there's a lot of plays that go good, that go unnoticed, and there's one that goes up top, and it's like there's one or there's a sack, and like that's part of, living life, outside. And what I do know about him, like this is one competitive guy, and like he's always down for the challenge and for the fight, and so I'm looking forward to working with him again this week and as we get rocking again.
The hope with Marshon Lattimore was that his disappointing play for the Commanders last season was due to his hamstring injury, right? Lattimore, off being acquired by the Commanders via trade with the New Orleans Saints last November 5th, what was 2024 NFL trade deadline day, was with the Commanders for a total of 11 games last season, 8 regular season games and 3 postseason games. But he, due to a troublesome hamstring, played in just 5 of those games, 2 regular season games and all 3 postseason games, and the play was not good enough. So the hope was that Lattimore this season would be healthier and thus better. Well, he this season so far has been healthier. It's funny, the Commanders this season are getting bludgeoned by injury, but Lattimore so far has been healthy, and yet his play still has been disappointing. This is his age 29 season. You have to wonder, is he just a declining player? Like, is that what we're seeing? The decline of Marshon Lattimore, plain and simple. He's just not that good anymore. Cornerbacks do not age well. Cornerback might be the worst aging position in the NFL after running back. Also with the Commanders, they are holding their Friday practice, what is more like a walkthrough, in Los Angeles. So the team is flying out to L.A. for this game at the Chargers early. The Friday practice is being held at the historic Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. We on Wednesday afternoon had this exchange between Commanders insider Liam Griffin of the Washington Times and Dan Quinn.
Hi, Coach. You guys are heading into Los Angeles early. What is the benefit for your team to have that extra day of practice at the Coliseum already in Southern California?
Yeah, we decided that in the spring that we oftentimes like to take an extended trip when we can. We had done it for a trip last year. We know obviously we're going to Madrid. We'll do that one as an extended time. I think it's some good spaces for the team to get together. It's also to get acclimated, to get ready. There's a big time change with that, and so we thought we would make that decision to go out early, get ourselves, fully ready, to go play at our best.
Yeah, this game at the Chargers is part of a 5-game stretch in which the Commanders are playing 4 road games. As we now are into October, we on Wednesday afternoon had this exchange between Candy Waller of Bowie TV Sports and Dan Quinn.
Hey, Coach. So you've mentioned, September football. So now it's October. So what does October football, what's been the message around what you want to see this month?
Yeah, I think the execution, honestly, Candy, that's the big thing. I want to make sure the energy home road in terms of, how we want to play. And somebody brought up starting fast to me. Starting fast doesn't mean a touchdown on the first drive or a 3 and out. It's a speed and intensity and urgency to go. So I don't want to confuse what that would look like. But I do want to see the execution really, start to dig in. We've had 4 games together. Roles have now begun to emerge. And so, it's a good month to go really dig in to go get better. And now that some of those roles have emerged, that's a big deal for it. Some guys have had to step in, and I've liked what I've seen in some of those instances, Candy, to see guys step up when the injuries take place, knowing that that's a part of it, and the opportunity came early for some of the players, and so it's nice to see them deliver and show and express themselves. Hey, man, I can help, I can do these things, and so I think that's been a big piece of it.
Big month for the Commanders at the Los Angeles Chargers this Sunday afternoon at 4:25. Home to the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football on October 13th at 8:15. At the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday afternoon, October 19th at 4:25. And at the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football on October 27th at 8:15. The Nationals in July 2006 hired Mike Rizzo. They in March 2009 promoted him to interim general manager. They in August 2009 removed the interim tag from his GM title. They on August 1st, 2013 promoted him to president of baseball operations and general manager. And that's on July 6, 2025, fired Rizzo and manager Davey Martinez. Mike Rizzo ran Nats baseball operations for more than 16 years. Who Nats ownership, the Lerner ownership group, went with as Rizzo's replacement, to me, is the single most important decision made by the Lerner Group since it bought the Nats in 2006. The person chosen to run Nats baseball operations is Paul Toboni. Time will tell if this was a good hire. I will say that I really like everything that I've read and heard from Toboni, but I also will say that none of this matters if the Lerner Group doesn't spend more on infrastructure and players. The Nats, in a post on X at 6 a.m. on Wednesday, officially announced the hiring of Paul Toboni as Nats president of baseball operations. We at 9 a.m. on Wednesday had his introductory press conference, and shockingly, in a good way, was the presence of 3 members of the Lerner family at the dais for the presser. Managing principal owner Mark D. Lerner, principal owner Edward L. Cohen, and principal owner Robert K. Tannenbaum. This was the first time in years that Nats ownership took questions from reporters. We, on April 11th, 2022, learned that the Lerner Group had begun exploring selling the Nats. We, on February 19th, 2024, President's Day 2024, learned that the Lerner Group was no longer exploring selling the Nats. Mark Lerner, since that time, had issued some statements and had said some stuff to the Washington Post, but in terms of a true formal session with reporters, we had not had one for Mark Lerner, never mind multiple members of Nats ownership in years. Now, the majority of the talking at the presser was done by Paul Toboni, and neither Edward L. Cohen nor Robert K. Tannenbaum ended up saying anything during the presser, but Mark Lerner did say some things. Regarding the big question of, is the Lerner Group going to spend? And again, I'm not just talking about spending on players. I'm talking about spending on infrastructure, which to me matters more than spending on players. Infrastructure as in front office members in terms of both analytics and scouting. Infrastructure as in analytics and sports science tools. Infrastructure as in a manager and coaches who are very good at what they do. We on Wednesday morning had this exchange between Nats insider Spencer Nussbaum of the Washington Post and Paul Toboni.
I'm curious what sort of assurances you've gotten in terms of latitude for spending, hiring, all those kind of processes. What sort of assurances you've been given and how that influenced your decision to take the job here?
Yeah, more than anything, like what I can point to is that I'm in this seat right now for a reason, right? And throughout the interview process and, even after accepting the job, I felt incredibly supported. And, that's the main thing. I continue to feel that support. And, that will allow us to build a world-class organization, which is what the goal for all of us will be.
Okay, so a rather short answer from Paul Toboni on what he has been told by the Lerner Group about assurances regarding spending, but he did say that he feels very supported. And logically, if you are Toboni and you are a bright, young, rising executive in MLB, why would you take this job of Nats president of baseball operations if it wasn't appealing? If you felt like ownership wasn't going to spend properly? Like, Toboni doesn't need this job. He could have waited for another head of baseball operations job with an MLB team. That he took this job is at least somewhat encouraging. But actions are what matter the most. Is the Lerner Group going to spend properly on infrastructure and players? We on Wednesday morning had this exchange between Barry Svrluga, columnist for the Washington Post, and Mark Lerner.
My question is actually for Mark. Mark, what in your conversations with Paul, what assurances did you give him from ownership that he would have the resources to build a modern front office and pay a competitive payroll like you paid when you were in the playoffs all the time?
We all gave him assurances, I would say that. The family is determined to get back to where we were a few years ago. We're going to do what it takes. We're going to do that in conjunction with sitting down with Paul when he's ready and saying, I need to do this and need to do that. And we'll take it from there. This is not a decision that has to be made today. But we will be there, and we're going to get back to where we know we should be.
Yeah. So I did not find that to be some supremely encouraging answer from Mark Lerner. Quote, "This is not a decision that has to be made today." End quote. I did not like hearing that. That was not the kind of go get 'em, yeah, we're going to be spending properly kind of answer that you wanted to hear. Now, he did say, quote, "We're going to get back to where we know we should be," end quote. That would be about player payroll. But again, what about infrastructure? The Lerner Group is famous for not spending on infrastructure, and that's a big part of the Nats having fallen so far behind in drafting and player development. Now, those are two areas in which Paul Toboni has excelled. Read the press release put out by the Nats early Wednesday morning on the hiring of Paul Toboni as president of baseball operations. Quote, "Widely regarded as one of the best young executives in baseball, Toboni will bring a fresh voice to the organization, providing valuable experience in scouting and player development to build around the Nationals' talented core of young star players." Toboni comes to the Nationals from the Boston Red Sox, where he most recently held the title of Senior Vice President, Assistant General Manager. In his time with Boston, Toboni oversaw player development at the major and minor league levels, as well as the MLB first-year player draft, and was one of the key voices in the organization's larger baseball operation strategy. Toboni is credited with modernizing Boston's draft and player development process, integrating traditional scouting and coaching with data-informed decision-making, end quote. And that last sentence right there was music to my ears. Quote, "Toboni is credited with modernizing Boston's draft and player development process, integrating traditional scouting and coaching with data-informed decision-making," end quote. That is exactly what the Nats need. The right way to run an MLB team's baseball operations in 2025 is with a heavy emphasis on both analytics and scouting. You don't have to choose between one of those approaches. You should embrace both approaches and attempt to be excellent at both approaches because both approaches matter. Paul Toboni very much appears to be someone who embraces both approaches. Toboni received a bachelor's degree in political economics at the University of California, Berkeley, where he, by the way, played baseball, was a member of the Bears' 2011 College World Series team. He earned a Master of Business Administration from Notre Dame with a specialization in finance and analytics. There's that word that we on this podcast love so much, analytics. In fact, take a listen to this from Paul Toboni on Wednesday morning.
You know, I'll put my hand up. I'm a huge believer in analytics, right? I'm also a strong advocate and believe in the power of area scouting. And I believe in the power of great coaching, right? So what we want to do is, have folks that have mutual respect for both, right? But also they understand how their responsibilities contribute to the greater goals of the department, right? And then we can clearly outline what's expected of everyone in their roles, right? And then it's up to them to really get after it and do a great job, right? So, I think that's the main thing. I've been around a lot of coaches that are very technically sound, right, but don't quite understand the art of coaching, and they're not as effective influencing players, right? And then I've been around coaches that really get the art of coaching but are behind technically, right, and they're not as good as they can be impacting players, right? So ideally, we are, outfitted in our group with scouts, coaches, whoever it might be, right, with both those traits. They really get how to connect with players and build trust and those type things, but also they're really well-versed technically how to get players better, right? And, once players start to see that, like, wow, this coach is really getting me better, and I'm getting the feedback that I'm getting better, it just creates this cascading buy-in where they're realizing that they are becoming the best versions of themselves, right? So the more we can do that over and over and over again, I think the word will get out around the league amongst the players. Like, the Washington Nationals is the place where I want to be because I know I'm going to develop most as a player there.
There is a lot for Paul Toboni to now do. He could hire a general manager. He, during the presser on Wednesday morning, was non-committal about hiring a GM. Also was non-committal about Nats interim GM Mike DeBartolo, although Toboni had some very nice things to say about DeBartolo. Also, Toboni needs to decide on a manager and coaching staff. Regarding that, I found this exchange telling. We on Wednesday morning had this exchange between Nats insider Jess Camerato of Nationals.com and Paul Toboni.
When you look at this Nationals team, what strikes you the most about this roster?
I think more than anything, we have some young, exciting players, right? I've been in touch with a number of them to date, and they're fun to watch. And I've told, many of them, while I haven't had the chance to reach out to everyone, I've told many of them, and I really believe it, I think there's another gear to tap into with many of them. And so it's not just that they're already really talented players, right? It's that it's easy for me to see a world a year or two down the line where we're seeing a different caliber of player in a good way.
So, Paul Toboni on the Nats promising young players, quote, "I think there's another gear to tap into," end quote. That right there was Paul Toboni saying the coaching and development of these promising young players needs to be a lot better. And that right there was Paul Toboni telling a lot of people with the Nats, you probably should start updating your LinkedIn pages. I like this from Paul Toboni on Wednesday morning, how he wants people to perceive the Nats with him as president of baseball operations.
Yeah, so how I think about this is I want to dominate both the big things and the small things, right? So when I think about the big things, do we want guys that throw hard? Yeah, we want guys that throw hard, right? Do we want guys that hit the ball hard? Yeah, we want guys that hit the ball hard, right? At the same time, we want to be best in the league at, first to third, right? Or cuts and relays, being really efficient with our footwork, those small things, right? Like, I think about the tag play all the time. I look around the big league still, and, guys aren't dropping tags the way they should be, right? And so those small things, right? I think about the contact play at third base, right? Like, those type small things, I think we have to dominate. And we might not be bunting, every inning, right? But when you're called upon to bunt, you got to get it down, right? And so I think there's for whatever reason, kind of a narrative that's been built throughout the game. Like, you either care about the big things or you care about the small things. And my approach on that is we should dominate both.
All right, good stuff from Paul Toboni there. And then also on Wednesday morning was this. Paul Toboni addressing what is maybe the single biggest question for the Nats right now. Is their rebuild, which is not working, salvageable? The Nats have had 6 consecutive losing regular seasons, 2020 through 2025. The rebuild that started with the fire sale in July 2021 isn't working, is failing. That is why Mike Rizzo and Davey Martinez got fired. We on Wednesday morning had this exchange between my co-host on the Nats Chat podcast, Nats insider Mark Zuckerman of MASNsports.com, and Mark Lerner.
For Mark, and if Ed and Bob wanted to share their thoughts as well, that'd be great. It was a little over 4 years ago that the organization started the rebuilding process, and I know the results are not so far what you would have hoped, and you wouldn't make this kind of change if you felt that way. But do you view this as a start over of that process? This is another long-term issue, or do you believe that there are pieces in place that winning is more of a short-term goal than a long-term goal right now?
Well, I first of all, I don't believe that we've gone backwards. I think we have a lot of great talent. A lot of these young men you haven't even seen yet. They're down at Rochester or Wilmington, Fredericksburg. So I think that we're giving Paul a great palette of young players. There's more we need to do, obviously, and we're not happy where we are right now. That's why we brought in Paul, and we're going to get back to where we're supposed to be. That's the commitment that we're all making to our fans, and don't give up on us. We're gonna be there again, guaranteed.
All right. Well, I am excited about the Nats now having Paul Toboni as their president of baseball operations, but, and I can't emphasize this enough, nothing with the team matters if ownership doesn't start spending properly. We shall see. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Friday's show, episode 1169. We'll have much more on the Commanders. In-depth preview of their game at the Los Angeles Chargers this Sunday afternoon at 4:25. Also on Friday's show, I'll talk college football week 6 of the 2025 season regarding the FBS teams of the Mid-Atlantic region, including big games for Maryland, Navy, and Virginia. The Terrapins are home to Washington Saturday afternoon at 3:30. The Midshipmen are home to Air Force Saturday at noon. And number 24 Virginia is at Louisville Saturday afternoon at 3:30. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and I'll talk to you on Friday.
I'm stepping into this role with a clear vision, and that vision is to be the highest performing organization in all sports.